Welcome back, Hugh.
It's great to be here again.
All my friends make fun of me when I have to say you because in Quebec we have a hard time when we speak French to say the H, so I have to go Hugh instead of you.
I've worked for a European company for 17 years. I've heard my name mispronounced about every way you possibly could. So I'll answer to anything.
So if someone says, "Hey, you,"
Instinctively, I turn my head. It can
that's
cause a lot of confusion. It's a
well,
little bit Costello.
oh yeah, I know. This is what we call a revisit with some really select leaders of care. We're bringing back to get like a little bit of an update, a little bit about news, what's happening with you, what's happening at DSM. Obviously, DSM and you have been massively engaged for years in and for the Sustainable Development Goals. Share with us a little update of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, we last time we spoke was like sort of mid-year last year. We were just in the first months of the pandemic. I think that that was actually an easier time to manage than it is now because, there was a lot of adrenaline. We were as a community confronting a crisis. The troops rally around the leaders during the crisis and around each other. We found a lot of ways to support the community with donations of PPE or nutritional ingredients. And, it helped us continue to live our purpose, even in the face of the pandemic. But that became harder as the months wore on, and I think we've had to really dig down as leaders in the organization and find new and creative ways to demonstrate our authenticity and our transparency. And, on top of all of the pandemic related stress, we had a lot of social and racial unrest in the country. And DSM was not immune to the impacts of that. We certainly had a very challenging political season, and DSM wasn't immune to that. We have folks on both sides of the aisle to both extremes on each side of the aisle, and we had to manage through all of that and all the anxiety and stress that creates at a time when we couldn't be physically together. And so I know we've taken a lot of learnings out of this experience of the last year that will carry over to whatever the future state might look like. I have a lot of conversations with employees and they say, when will we go back to normal? I'm like, we're never going back to normal. It's going to be better than it was before because we've learned so much, not just about ourselves, but about each other. And so I think the company's positioned for a very, very bright future. We're in businesses that people appreciate now more than ever, being in nutrition and healthcare. And so, no, the future looks bright. I know around the country, the pandemic situation is still a very, very dangerous one, but it seems to be improving every day. Yep. And like you, I hope to be back on an airplane soon. I hope to be standing up in front of crowds again soon. I hope to be with my my colleagues soon. Can't happen soon enough, but when it's safe, we'll all do those things again.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I'm weird or not, but I do like airports and airplanes and hotels and stuff. So I miss that. Although I do realize that I didn't need to travel as much all the time. So you said something I thought, as my UK friends would say, brilliant. I think if we did learn something from all this, that would be the biggest loss of all, is not learning something from it. And it so relates to the Sustainable Development Goals, how important they are. It relates, as we talked about, to caring about, this is a Leaders Who Care series, to caring about our people. And, we call it their financial, their physical and mental well-being, and their families, etc. So I know you do a lot in that area. You came out and were promoting vitamin D, vitamins, for people, which is shown to really make a difference. Tell us a little bit about how you think you and everybody in the company are coming up with, well, we can be better than normal. We are going to do better things. This is what we learned, that type.
Yeah, one of the first things we did actually was share the immunity boosting supplements with our own employees and their families. And we've done 2 rounds of that. A 3rd round is coming soon with a high potency form of vitamin D that's not on the market in the United States yet, but we're going to get it to our people first and their families, and then we'll bring it to the American population. One of the things that I've learned is one of the hardest things to learn as a leader, and that's trust. We're taught in school, in business school, almost a military command and control style, that a leader has to be surrounded by followers and a leader has to be directive and prescriptive in what they say. And the pandemic has taught us, because that was impossible, that we have to trust the employees, not just your direct reports, but at skip levels, to do the right thing, live the purpose of the company, and execute the strategy. And we learn that we can trust our employees up and down, rank and file, that if they're part of a great culture, if you have constant communication, if they live your purpose and understand your strategy, a good leader knows how to get out of the way sometimes. And so I think over the last year, I've learned quite a bit about how to get out of the way when it's time to get out of the way, and how to be the cheerleader when it's time to be the cheerleader.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with an executive saying, I'm actually finding it easier to be a leader now because they don't expect me to know everything.
So, I totally appreciate that.
Yeah, it was interesting. And he said vulnerability was the best thing that ever happened to me. He said for his own well-being and for the employees. And you're right. If someone's remote and you can't be looking over them per se, as you may at an office, you do have to trust them more. And I think it's given leaders valuable education in the sense that, wow, I really do have great employees. And the fact that it's like a coach berating a player all the time versus, I know you're great, go out and do it. And if the guy really believes in me, I'm gonna make it happen for him.
Yeah, and that's a little bit around like the topic of purpose, and that it's almost become cliche in business today. But I think we've learned that if your purpose is real and genuine, and your employees feel it, I mean, that's what really helped a lot of people during this pandemic. Is that they got up in the morning and they understood that the work that we do in the company has a larger purpose than just a paycheck, and that we're making nutritional ingredients, we're making food ingredients, we're for the Americans, for people all over the world. And you really needed that purpose when there wasn't an alarm clock telling you to get up and go somewhere at a certain time and to be in an office. I think it really helped. It really helped serve as a motivation. It really helped with some folks' mental health. And we've made telling those stories of purpose really a centerpiece of our internal employee communications. And I think it's been certainly been very helpful to me. But I get a lot of feedback from the employees that it's very helpful to them as well.
Now I remember you had something, I can't remember what it was called. It's like community listening. You have a program with Black employees, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, right after the George Floyd murder up in Minneapolis, I wrote a letter to the employees. I'm pretty much saying, I know that there are a lot of folks in the company who don't look like me, who are experiencing this very differently than me. And I just wanted to let them know that although I couldn't begin to understand how this makes you feel, I want you to know that you're seen. And you can imagine that created a lot of feedback, hundreds and hundreds of emails back from some employees who were just grateful to be seen, from other employees who felt that it was too much. But at the very least, it was a catalyst for conversation, and that was my goal. And so out of that conversation came the creation of an employee resource group within DSM called BLEN, which is Black Employee Network at DSM. And they've done already tremendous work in just sharing experiences, helping Black employees in the company find each other. As part of a dominant group, you and I, we're both middle-aged white men. We can find each other pretty easily. But when you have a large company that's spread across 38 sites, it's not as easy for some of those who are of the historically less represented groups to find one another. And employee resource groups like this, I think, are very beneficial, if for no other reason than that. And hopefully we'll stand up a few more as the months go by.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant because we may have talked about this before, but they say after food and air, the number one thing that fulfills people's hearts and souls is belonging. Mm-hmm. And because that's why being home all the time is like killing us, because we want to belong. So I think that's smart. And we're involved with a collaboration with some major players of making systemic change against anti-racism in corporates, and it's going to end up applying to others. But one line that really came to my attention, we all talk about another cliche, best practices, but they've been telling me, and if you think about it, and this is again to your point about people feeling heard versus just listening to them but not really hearing them, they said, how can we make systemic change when they want us to put it into what they call best practices, but they're not the best practices, they haven't worked. It's got to be not trusted practices, to your point about trust. rather than best practices. So it sounds like you're on that cusp right there.
And certainly trying very hard to learn as well. But you can imagine it's difficult in a company. And I found that one of the challenges I found in DSM is not the difference between the Black experience and the white experience. It's actually the generational experience,
Mhm.
where I have folks who, I'm a Gen Xer, folks who might be in my generation who have a relationship with the company, experience work very differently than the millennial generation. And when you have a group of leaders who are Gen Xers, they really need to take some time, to take a breath, to get some insight, to understand, to be able to listen to what they're being told by a younger generation, rather than dismissing it, and understanding that they come from a completely different sort of experience than we had, and they really have something to offer, and what they have to say is valid. But that has been the biggest challenge of all.
Yeah, and that's kind of falls under the realm of dignity and respect, where I just placed an older person working for a younger person, but they were both brilliant in the sense they both wanted, like you said, the younger person knew by hiring that person that was going to be awesome for her, and the older person, who was a guy, knew, man, I'm going to learn what I don't know from her. And to me, that should be a no-brainer, but not everybody can handle that.
I mean, for me, it's been even some very fundamental things where, people of my age who have leadership roles in the company say, you have work and then you have your life, and the two things are completely separate and never shall meet. And when they're confronted with folks from a different generation for whom work and life has always been blended,
Mhm.
they struggle with addressing issues that might not fall into the traditional work bucket, like childcare. Like, how do I deal with childcare or elder care, or what about my, I want to get a better education or training. And I have older employees who are like, that's not my business. And I have to try to convince them, it's a new world. It's all your business now. And if you want to be an effective leader, you have to learn to manage the whole person, not just the part that you define as the work person.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. And if you look at it, it's probably going to be a whole lot better, because you don't stop work to have life and then stop life to have work. It's all should be one, and that really becomes community then, and then it's beneficial to all. So hey, great revisit. I know we can talk for probably 2 hours, but number one, it's always great to see you bring positive energy to the table, which I always appreciate, and look forward to talking with you more and doing some great stuff this year.
I as well. Hopefully next time we get together, I want to have my surfer hair going like this. I'll look a little more presentable, but at least this will be safe for posterity in the pandemic.
I wish I had surfer hair, dude.
Vitamin D is making this hair grow, just letting you know.
I'm going to take an overdose.
Don't do that.
Talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.